I thought it'd be a good time to talk about Mono Quantum once more. What makes this team the best team in the game undisputably? Well, if you take this into consideration, it contains one of each of individual characters that are in their rights broken. Then you have a team full of broken characters of one of the most broken elements with one of the most broken ways of playing the game. Because every character here in the team comp will fundamentally change the way you play the game. Now, when it comes to your DPS in the Mono Quantum team, you have two very good characters. The first one being a very nice free-to-play option, that is QQ. She's a very nice AoE damage dealer, has very good adjacent AoE damage, so she pairs pretty well with a character like Fuxuan. And then you have Seal, who is a character that a lot of people have since day one. She's a character that works extremely well in the Mono Quantum team composition because just like QQ, she works against enemies that are weak to adjacent damage. Seal doesn't necessarily do AoE damage, but she does pseudo AoE damage, I like to call it, because she has resets in her kit. So to keep this as free-to-play friendly as possible, we'll be using the free-to-play option, which is QQ, for our Mono Quantum team composition. So we have our main damage dealer. Now we need the character that makes this team come all together, and that is going to be... Without Silverwolf, you can't play Mono Quantum. I would go as far as say without Silverwolf, you can't play any mono composition in Honkai Star Rail, because the way this character functions is how she fundamentally changes the way you play the game, and that is because she has a implant weakness effect with her elemental skill, allowing you to take the element your team has and put that element onto the enemy, making that enemy weak to that weakness, in this case Quantum. Now when it comes to the weakness implant effect for Silverwolf, you're most likely looking to put this onto the enemy that is the boss in the fights. So if you're fighting enemies that have adjacent enemies alongside the boss, you probably want to put your weakness implant onto the boss because that's the one you want to do the most damage to. You can kill the adjacent enemies with your QQ's splash damage or your Seal's regular elemental skill in order to get the resurgence for the character to do additional damage and get an additional turn. And much like the elemental skill, you want to use the ultimate on the boss, and having a 100% chance to lower that boss's defense makes Silverwolf a very strong nihility character, or should I say a buffer character to have in the Mono Quantum team composition, because it acts as a hyper carry team comp, because characters like Silverwolf, and when we get into the character later, a character like Fuxuan and maybe even Bronya, depending on who you want to use in your Quantum team composition. Next up, being able to reduce attack and reduce speed of the enemy is very valuable. The reduced attack portion is extremely valuable if you take into consideration a character like Fuxuan will provide damage reduction to the team. So being able to apply a reduced attack onto the enemy will make it to where your team will take even less damage, making Fuxuan even more valuable. And Silverwolf, being a very skill point positive character, makes her even more valuable in that Mono Quantum team composition because QQ wants all of these skill points she can get, or your Seal, depending on the character you're using. Now when it comes to Mono Quantum, you of course want to have a Silverwolf built on a sub DPS build because she will be dealing quite a bit of damage alongside your other damage characters in the team comp. A character like Fuxuan provides very valuable buffs to the whole team, a buff like crit rate making Silverwolf a much more easier character to build as a sub DPS because you don't have to chase as many crit stats as you might think. And then of course you want effect hit rate on your character. If you have a light cone like this, it's very easy to hit that effect hit rate threshold that you need in order to make sure that your lower resistances lands on the enemy and all the other debuffs you have in your kit, like the defense reduction and the actual weakness implant effect that Silverwolf has on her elemental skill. So now we have our main damage dealer, we have the character that makes this team come all together, or you could say she is the sub DPS character, or you could also say she is the offensive supporter debuffer character in the team comp. So she has a bunch of names you can call her, but you can just call her Bronya Jr. like I do. You are being hypnotized into believing that the pink hair that March 7th has resembles that of Fuxuan. So now you see Fuxuan on the screen, and Fuxuan is the character that is the defensive option in the Mono Quantum team composition. She is the character that is going to be the solo sustained character. She's also a character that will provide many buffs to all of your characters in the Mono Quantum team comp. And if you build every single character as a damage dealer, you'll be very happy with a character like Fuxuan and all the utility she provides. Okay, so Toshi has come around finally. I have put speed boots. I know a lot of you have cringed at my recent video with my Fuxuan build. I want to build a very slow and tanky Fuxuan. I don't know why I want to, but I think having a very slow and tanky Fuxuan means you can build her with more damage stats, You can also build her with more resistances, and you can build her with a ton of more HP, because speed takes up so many of your overall character's score stats. It's really hard for me to justify having her, especially because she needs so many other stats, as a lot of speed. But of course, you can just throw speed main stat boots on her and call it a day. And when it comes to light cone choices, I'm going to be using We Are Wildfire. If you have other options on your account, then you can use whatever option you want to use. I think Fuxuan is a very nice preservation character, with her being a character that can use pretty much any preservation light cone and get value out of. But I personally will be using this because the damage reduction dealt to all allies, which is going to be additive to what she already has in her kit when it comes to damage reduction, is going to be very valuable with her in the team composition. So you'll have a lot more damage reduction, thus having a much more comfortable first 5 turns of the battle. And with this mono quantum team composition, you're going to be dealing so much damage to the point where those 5 turns are not going to run out as quick as you might think. Now that we have our solo sustained character, which is going to be Fuxuan, in our mono quantum team composition, we finally have our 3 quantum characters. Fuxuan providing the crit buffs to the team means that all of your characters that are doing damage, which essentially every single character in this team composition, will take full advantage of that crit, having much easier builds to take advantage of the crit rate buff, on top of the fact that Fuxuan herself turns your literal squishies into pseudo tanks, just like Bailu's Invigoration, because she provides an HP buff that depends on the amount of HP that she has in total to your ally characters. It's very, very good. And lastly, she has a crowd control resist that she applies to the team, which makes it very valuable in AoE situations where the enemy is just going to be hitting all of your allies. Whatever ally gets CC'd, well, they won't be CC'd because Fuxuan provides that CC resist buff to the team. Now, when it comes to the last option in the mono quantum team composition, you of course want to have a character that acts as a buffer for the whole team, much like Fuxuan. Or you could use a character like Lynx and maybe build her as a damage dealer. I don't know how her multipliers is nowadays. Maybe she can be a sub DPS also. But I will find myself using Bronya even though she's not a quantum character, only because the buff she provides is very invaluable for a character like Fuxuan, or a character like, let's just say, Silverwolf, who also is a damage dealer, a character like QQ, who is the main damage dealer in our team composition, or even Seal, her best partner. Now, if we ever get a Harmony Quantum character, you best believe I will be replacing Bronya in that team composition, because having a 100% chance to throw that quantum weakness onto the enemy makes it to where you will never have to worry about that 50% chance of throwing the wind weakness on the enemy, which will grind your gears and make you go insane. Now, we know how Bronya works. She applies a attack buff and a crit damage buff to the whole team with her ultimate. Very, very valuable. And she dispels a debuff and pushes up the allies' action forward, which makes her a very valuable character, much like Silverwolf, fundamentally changing the way you play the game and increasing that allies' damage. So this will be your main damage dealer, in this case, a character like QQ. Now, if you take into consideration the dispel debuff, making her a very nice cleanser to have in team composition is even more valuable, because maybe Fuxuan won't really cover every single CC that the enemy throws at you. So if you have a character like Bronya, who is going to be pushing up the action forward of your main damage dealer, in this case QQ, you'll never have to worry about that character being CC'd. Very, very valuable. But as I said before, once we get a Harmony Quantum character, I'm going to be replacing Bronya in a heartbeat, because I cannot stand a 50% chance of putting that quantum weakness on the enemy. Is going to drive me crazy. But ideally, this is what your team will look like, and it's going to be a very strong team. This team will fundamentally change the way you play the game. Being able to put the quantum weakness on the enemy at all times makes it to where you'll never have to worry about the enemy being weak to whatever element you bring, because that enemy is always going to be weak to that element. On top of the supporters you have in the team composition to buff your main damage dealer, you're going to have a team comp that also functions like the hyper carry team. So what you have is a team composition where the enemy is going to constantly be weak to the element that you bring to the fight, and on top of that, have a hyper carry team in it also. So you're getting a 2-for-1. I think we can say that's pretty broken for the most part. Now, before I end the video, I want to preface and say this is not me trying to get anyone to spend money on the game. If you have a character like Seal, or you have QQ, which we all got in the beginning of the game, you have Silverwolf, who makes the mono quantum team composition come together, you have a character like Lynx in the near future, and then you luck out and pull a character like Fuxuan, you'll have the 4 quantum characters you need in that team composition to make the mono quantum team composition work. But if you're adventurous like me, then you probably will replace your Lynx with a character like Bronya, and that is until we get a quantum harmony character, if we ever do. And if we do, that Bronya will be replaced. And that's crazy, because the first time I will ever say that Bronya is being replaced in a team composition, because there will be a better option. Just think about how crazy that sounds. Anyways, this is a video here. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Yes, Mono Quantum is going to be the most broken team in the game, just because it fundamentally changes the way you play the game. You have characters like Silverwolf, a character like Seal, characters like Fuxuan, who are going to, Fuxuan we know is going to be a broken character. You have all these broken characters in the team comp with one of the most broken elements in the game, with one of the most broken features in the game. Being able to constantly break the toughness on the enemy. I can go on and on, but I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for watching and have a nice rest of your weekend. Peace.